Hi firefighters, my name is Madison Hirschberger and I am an occupational health specialist for the Oklahoma Department of Health. Today I've been called here to speak to you all about smoke inhalation and other related job exposures that you might encounter while out in the fire ground. So we're going to start from the basics. Firefighters like yourselves can be called to any number of settings, and it's impossible to predict all of the hazards that you guys may encounter. So what are some of the health and safety hazards associated with your occupation? You have hazards that are biological, such as exposure to bloodborne diseases, chemical, such as smoke, ergonomic, such as heavy lifting, physical, such as heat stress, safety, from unstable buildings, and even psychological hazards from traumatic events. Today, since we will be discussing smoke inhalation, we will be more so focusing on the chemical hazard exposures that you might encounter on the job. So smoke released by a fire is a mixture of particles and chemicals produced by the incomplete burning of carbon-containing materials. The toxicity of the smoke greatly depends on three things. 1. How hot the fire is. 2. The amount of oxygen available. And 3. Most importantly, what is fueling the fire. Here is a list of chemicals commonly found in residential house fires. We have things such as ammonia, arsenic, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, hydrogen chloride, mercury vapor, nitrogen oxides, different particulates, and sulfur dioxide, just to name a few. All smoke, regardless of the material burning, contains carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and particulate matter, or soot, which makes all smoke hazardous to breathe. Inhaling smoke, even for a short time, can affect you immediately. The carbon monoxide and fine particles found in all types of smoke are the major agents responsible for these acute health effects. Fine particles in the air are able to travel deep into your respiratory system and can result in eye, nose, and throat irritation, can impact your lung function, and result in shortness of breath. Inhalation of the particles can even worsen medical conditions in patients with cardiovascular disease, the elderly, and those with pre-existing breathing conditions such as asthma. Inhaling carbon monoxide decreases your body's oxygen supply and can cause a condition called hypoxia, which is very dangerous. Hypoxia can cause symptoms such as weakness, headaches, and confusion, which altogether this can make it very difficult for you to escape a fire scene. Once your exposure stops, symptoms from inhaling carbon monoxide or fine particles generally diminishes, but it can last a couple of days depending on the severity of your exposure. Long-term and frequent exposure to smoke has also the potential to cause chronic, long-term health effects. This includes an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and subsequent mortality, as well as various respiratory diseases. Currently, cancer is under further study. According to the Firefighter Cancer Support Network, cancer is the most dangerous threat to firefighter health and safety. Compared to the general population, firefighters' risks are significantly higher for some types of cancer, specifically cancer that affects the kidneys, respiratory, and GI systems. This is why it is so important and imperative that you use appropriate gear and respiratory protection to reduce your exposure to these particles when working in heavy smoke. Over the years, attempting to assess exposures in the fire ground has proven to be difficult. The impacts of exposure are also complicated by several factors. This is largely due to the fact that firefighters, like yourselves, face several types of chemical exposures due to different kinds of fires, varying roles in the workplace, and how long you've been serving your community on the fire ground. Some of the factors that can impact chemical exposures are the interactions between various different chemicals present at the scene, as well as the way that your body biologically interacts with these chemicals. Everyone's body is different, and things simple as the vitamins or the medications that you're taking can impact the way that your body handles exposures. Exposure to other unknown chemicals, products, pharmaceuticals, and medicines may be possible when assisting fire victims or when providing first aid. It has also been found that rates of binge drinking and tobacco usage were a little higher for firefighters, and ultimately, this impacts population's health, disease rates, and the severity of certain chemical exposures. So, what are other major potential exposures that you might encounter? The big one here is carcinogens, which is cancer causing materials. Clearly, the fire ground by its nature is a high risk environment with a number of carcinogenic exposures for any responder on the scene. As mentioned, cancer is a very serious risk for any fire service man or woman. While overall cancer risk is estimated to be increased around 9 to 14% compared to the general population, increased risk for individual cancers is often much higher and has been found to be increased as much as 100% for mesothelioma. Alarmingly, firefighters have also been found to develop cancer at younger ages than the general population, which kind of leads us to think that it's occupational based. This is not necessarily surprising since most of the chemicals commonly found in residential house fires, as I mentioned before, are known cancer-causing carcinogens. Understanding these risks is an important foundation for understanding health and environmental impacts and for identifying and promoting mitigation and prevention efforts. So, how to avoid carcinogen exposure? As firefighters, you guys are responsible for recognizing what personal protective equipment, or PPE, is needed in hazardous situations and, most importantly, wearing said PPE at all times to limit chemical absorption through your skin and through your respiratory system. You guys must also wear self-contained breathing apparatuses at all times. As you can see by the picture here, you might not even be aware of the carcinogens in the air. So it's important to protect yourself regardless of if people think you might look silly or if it's just a car fire. It's also important to invest in additional high-performing protective gear and firehouse supplies. This point is more so focused on the fire station as a whole. It's not something you can necessarily do on your own, but it would be helpful for your station to look into upgrading any old gear that you might have. Healthy behaviors is also something that is very important to avoiding your exposure. Proper nutrition and regular physical activity are things that typically help keep you healthy, and these things regularly can help reduce your risk of cardiac events and injury on the field, and can help you stay mentally fit and bounce back from exposures. All the practices that I've mentioned are important for reducing exposure to harmful substances on the job, but one of the best pieces of advice I have for you is to pay attention to your body. You monitor yourself for signs of fatigue and dehydration, and just take care of yourself. If you need to sleep an extra hour, just be sure to take care of your body. Healthy in, healthy out. This is something that I ran across while doing some research for this presentation for you all. Healthy in, healthy out was done by the Kent Fire Department and the Washington State Council of Firefighters. Healthy In, Healthy Out is a very well-rounded resource that provides education in regards to taking preventative measures to reducing firefighters' risk of exposure to carcinogens. The goal of this manual is to encourage safe and healthy practices from the first day as a firefighter up until retirement. This manual identifies the best practices that reduce your risks, as well as providing many simple, cost-effective methods that you can implement to reduce your risk. A few practical measures firefighters can take to limit exposures are listed below. Gross contamination cleaning and disinfecting gear is one of the most important things that you guys can do to help limit exposures. Gross contamination is something that occurs at the scene by rinsing your gear with a fire hose to remove most of the toxic products or combustion contaminants that you might have encountered. Cleaning is something that occurs back at the fire station using soap and other cleaning products, and disinfection only happens after this object has been cleaned. Another thing that you can do is to remove your contaminated PPE and gear after exposure and place them in a heavy-duty trash bag in the hose bed. This includes your things such as your helmet, your gloves, your boots, and any other protective wear. You place them in the hose bed so that you do not contaminate your seat or any other areas in the fire engine, and you protect everyone else, not just yourself. Once back at the station, you can open the bag and let it off gas outside before cleaning and disinfecting. Ultimately, your gear should be cleaned after each exposure because the accumulation of soot and chemicals can lead to persistent exposures of carcinogens. While you might be proud of your dirty gear and proud of your job well done, you must also take pride in your health and ensure your gear is properly cleaned. After fires, simple supplies such as an extra set of clothes, cleaning wipes, and storage for contaminated gear can reduce the amount of time that you and your partners are in the presence of contaminated clothing. It's also very important to shower after a fire. While you might be covered from head to toe, you still are exposed to things that can seep through your gear and be absorbed into your body through your skin. Showering helps rid your surface of all of these toxins and helps protect you. It's also important to perform annual physicals and wellness exams. Exams should include a heavy metal screening, a cancer screening, pulmonary, and a stress test. This is especially important for early cancer detection. This manual also has things that give different suggestions for station design and other ways that you can help keep things clean at the fire station. An example of this would be removing the carpet at the station to remove any sort of contaminant that might have settled into the carpet over the years. It also stresses the importance of proper ventilation and the distinction between station shoes and work boots. It also mentions doing different zones within the fire station, such as red, yellow, and green zones, which are respectively for contaminated, cleaned, and disinfected items. So here's my contact information. Please feel free to contact me with any further questions, comments, or for more resources. I have also listed the website and phone number for the Oklahoma Department of Health if you need anything from their website. I have so enjoyed talking to you all today and hope this helps you to be proactive and stay safe in the field.